This conference will now be recorded.
All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Thursday, November 10th, 2022 edition of the Iowa 911 Communications Council. We will forego doing guest introductions, but welcome everybody in the room as well as joining us virtually. Kara, could we get a roll call, please?
It's Chris Jasper.
I'm here.
Hartman. Lawrence Hartman. George Griffith. Mike Bryant.
Here.
Mark Murphy.
Mark's here.
Tracy Bearden. Here. Richard Pierce. Here. Rob Dennert.
Here.
Jack D'Angelo.
Here.
Taylor Teeple.
Okay, thank you. Could I please get a motion to approve today's agenda? Pierce makes a motion. Second. Discussion. All those in favor, signal by saying aye.
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 Again, same sign. Motion carries. Likewise, could I get a motion to approve the October 13th, 2022 minutes? Pierce will make the motion. Do I have a second?
Jasper will second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signal by saying aye.
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 Again, same sign. Motion carries. Blake, you have a report for us.
I do. First, we'll just dive into the program financials. I'm going to throw the PSAP payments on the screen. Ooh, that is way too small. Nothing really out of the ordinary to note, but I would, of course, take any questions if there are any. Looking at the quarterly financial report, there's a couple things I want to highlight or point out. Starting kind of from the top, you'll see the HSCMD funding. Most quarters, we leave that blank, but at the beginning of the fiscal year is when Department of Management moves the program administration into our account. So that did increase from $250,000 to $300,000 in the previous legislative session. So you'll see that noted there. A couple other things to point out. You'll notice just in general, this report looks a whole lot shorter than it used to be, and it is. A couple things that used to be listed are the National 911 grants, as well as the physical consolidation grants. All of those things have been closed out, period of performance is over, so they've been removed from the expenditure report. Finally, one thing to highlight, if you look, the line right above the first bold line where it says amount transferred to operating surplus, you will notice a negative balance there. We did have to draw from the surplus in order to pay the front-end bills this quarter. A couple reasons for that. One was what I noted already with the program administration funding coming out this quarter. And the other reason you will notice a large, almost $1 million payment to Zetron. When we restructured our contract with them, we kind of did it a turnkey solution, which meant all of the recurring costs came out at the same time. So the annual recurring costs came out this quarter, which generated that, again, nearly $1 million expense. We have worked with them already after closing this quarter out. In future fiscal years, we will spread that payment out over the 4 quarters to try to alleviate that situation in the future. But it's also something we're keeping an eye on. So, we will definitely take a look at the subsequent 3 quarterly reports. It's obviously not something we want to be upside down on, but at least for this upcoming fiscal year, we're not making any recommendations on doing anything with increasing the surcharge. I feel a couple calls towards that end. I think it's something we monitor at this point and keep an eye on. So just wanted to highlight that, and because it's maybe a larger topic, I would take any questions on that before I move on. Okay, then I will move into my normal presentation. So why is my screen flashing? Just a second, I gotta switch what I'm sharing. Okay, so we went over the program financials. The next bullet there is the wireline surcharge memo. That went out earlier this week. That was a request from the 911 Council last month. That went to wireline providers as well as PSAPs and 911 service boards. Basically just a housekeeping matter on how wireline surcharge works. Nothing was new in that memo, really just kind of capturing it maybe in a little bit more plain English than having to go to Iowa Code 34A or administrative rules. So that went out. I didn't receive any questions. I should say I received one question from a PSAP and I received one question from a telco. Both were very minor. I think as far as I know, it was well received. If you have any questions or follow-ups or need to use that in the future with your telcos, please feel free to do so. The next bullet there is just a friendly reminder of annual forms, which are coming due administratively the end of the calendar year. So you still have, basically a month and a half to get those in. So just a reminder. Another thing that we are working on with the Interop board as well as CISA is to do a cyber assessment of the 911 system in Iowa. Part of that will also come with a kind of a cyber webinar that's focused on PSAPs. We're looking probably at January for that webinar. If you remember, we did a similar one probably 3 or 4 years ago. It has been updated, so we're looking to hold that again, but I just wanted to get that out in front of everyone for your awareness. GIS grant information. Remember, we pay this out quarterly at this point. 32 additional counties met the benchmarks the first month of Q2, but of course you still have an additional 2 months to meet those benchmarks within Q2. So that's why there's no dollar not listed at this point specific to Q2. No training funds requested this month. And with that, I will turn it over to Lynn Warren with Z-Tron.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Got
it. All right. This is the update for Iowa Shared Services. Next slide, please. Last month was a busy month for us. We had Guthrie, Butler, Cedar Rapids, JCA, and all go live. Yesterday, Union County went live. That is the 7th of the South County Iowa PSAPs. And for the rest of the year, we've got Wapello and Wapello and Ottumwa going live next week, and then we have Jasper going live in December, and that'll round out the rest of the year. Next slide, please. This is what the map currently looks like. We've got 62 PSAPs that are live, and we have 11 that we are still deploying through this year and next. Next slide, please. We have our November newsletter coming out before the end of the month. Email me at lynn.warren@zetron.com if you'd like to get on the distribution list or you have any other questions about the Iowa Shared Services program. And I think that's it for me.
Thank you. And then before I close my report, there's a couple items that the ICN wanted to highlight. And again, I think I'm going to have to fiddle with my screen a second. Just what's that? Steph, do you want to take this?
Sure. Can you hear me? Okay. Hi, I'm Stephanie DeVault. I am the Bureau Chief for Business Services at the Iowa Communications Network. Wanted to bring up some of the things that we are seeing in our world from copper infrastructure. So recently I've had a few PSAPs reach out directly to me that are paying, we'll say, $23 for a DSO, a DS1, something that is on an older copper infrastructure, and it can be T1s, it can be anything. The copper that's in the ground, some of it has been in there since the 1800s. In 2010, the FCC has told all the telecoms nationally that they can push everybody off, regardless of who the customer is, from a copper infrastructure basis, and put them on something like fiber, wireless, cellular, anything to deploy and get rid of the copper infrastructure, because it's becoming too old, too convoluted for them to maintain. We are seeing with some of these customers where they're getting charges that were normally $23 a month, upwards to $600, $700 a month per line. The push on this is to push the customers off to a better solution. This would have come in an email, or it could have come from the telecom provider in your area in an invoice. It could have come in just a small little caveat on their website. We are seeing that the outreach of this is very minimal, but it has been there. And the way that people are seeing it is surprise, aha, it's in your bill, you now need to pay for this. So things that I'd like to bring up on this is, if you do get one of these surprise bills, number one, confirm that you are not in a contract. We have seen where at the ICN we've been charged a significant amount of money, from I think $400 to $2,000 on individual camera trunks. We were under contract for those camera trunks, so we went back and told the vendor, you cannot charge us those additional fees. If you are not under contract, what you need to do is look and see, can you pay for this? Do you want to go with an alternative service? And if you can and will, then what I'd also suggest is making sure that your infrastructure can handle some sort of fiber, optical, Ethernet sort of connection into your facility. So it's not just affecting your POTS lines, it's affecting anything that is copper that is in the ground that could come into a facility. So with that also being said, does anybody have any questions on this before I go to next? Okay. So as most of you guys know, we are in most of these PSAPs. We have direct fiber connection into these facilities, which for us, we can basically turn on a single port in order to give those direct PSAPs internet connection, voice, DDoS. As you guys have probably seen and heard, we've been hit a lot for ransomware, for security. I can tell you with this last election, my CIO and my security team were definitely fighting other countries to get into multiple entities across the state of Iowa. We do recommend that you look at your security practices within your organizations as well, but the ICN does have the ability to now give you these services at the local level. Is Ryan, are you on the phone by chance?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes. So Ryan is our CIO at the ICN. I'm going to let him chime in on what other things that we can offer and how we can do this. Things as well that you guys should be aware of with our internet services and our network. I believe we have 170 mo rings that are out there. So if you have a fiber cut, it's a self-healing network where it will fail over to another connection. We've got over 3,000 miles worth of fiber in the ground. And then we also have availability to partner with other resources and use master service contracts that we hold in place, being that main holder for the state of Iowa. But if you could chime in, Ryan, that would be fantastic.
Absolutely. Good morning, everybody. Ryan Mulhall, I'm the CIO at the ICN. I lead our network operations, security, and outside plant fiber teams. Like Steph mentioned, we do have the ability to provide these services to you across our full suite: internet, data, DDoS protection, and managed firewall services are kind of the main ones that we offer in our world. What does that mean for the public safety? Public safety is an authorized user of the ICN. Some of the local entities potentially are not, but we've agreed kind of in principle with Homeland to sponsor being able to provide these kinds of services to you. So
what we're exploring there is how we can do that. We think we have a path. So, if we can get that lined up to where we can sign off along with Homeland to sponsor any of these services for you guys, if you're interested, we can certainly further explore that and are happy to do that. And I will take any questions as well.
So Ryan, I might maybe take a step back. This is Blake, and just for those listening on the call, there was a legislative change, a year or two ago, that now allows ICN to sell directly to normal authorized users, where a local jurisdiction like an EOC, an EMA, a PSAP would be the entity billed, but for instance, a state entity would be the sponsor. That's kind of what you're describing.
Yeah, about a year and a half ago, there was some legislation passed that allowed us to bill directly on a authorized user's behalf if they want to sponsor a service. So, this example here would be exactly it. Homeland would be the sponsor, and then we'd be able to provide and directly bill the services to the local entities.
Are there any questions for ICN? And that also concludes my brief, so I would take any questions as well.
Okay, thank you, Blake. We don't have any training fund requests, so we'll move on to reports. Do we have any technical advisories?
Yes, you may.
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is Jack
Angie.
D'Angelo. Hello?
Good morning, Jack. Yes, go ahead.
I just had an article passed along to me I would share today in regard to cyber attacks, DOS, denial of service attacks specifically. I guess this happened over in Erie County, Pennsylvania, city of Erie. Maybe you're aware of this, for 5 hours Sunday night. This was back in middle October, late October. For 5 hours Sunday night into Monday morning, a deactivated wireless device in the city of Erie called Erie County 911 every 7 seconds, approximately 750 times. This was like from 8:55 p.m. Sunday to 2 a.m. Monday, and pretty much tied up the PSAP dispatchers. It appears, again, it was a DOS attack, denial of service attack. It appears it came from a deactivated cell phone. Evidently, I don't know if that was hacked or somebody, or it was just a problem with that cell phone. But obviously, cell phones that are deactivated can still dial 911. There is a note here. It says, evidently they're on next gen 911. Comtech is involved and was able to resolve the problem faster by isolating the calls coming from the device and expanding the system's ability to accept a wider volume of calls. So just interesting. I think maybe we've run across that before, but wanted to share that with the council. I'll send the article over as I usually do.
Okay, thank you, Jack. Any other technical advisories? Okay, moving on. We could please get a update on the Iowa statewide interoperable communication system. Captain Pierce.
What I'd like to pass on is that we have a conditional offer that was given to Haley Nichols to be the next SWIC to replace Chris Mayer, and that is in process, and her background's being sent, her application is being sent to background, and we hope to have her on board about mid-December. And I turn it over to Wally and Scott.
Yeah, here, sure. So I'll start off with some maintenance housekeeping for ISIX. The annual HVAC and generator maintenance is not complete. Motorola continues the RF maintenance, and 44 sites have been completed so far. The remainder to be scheduled in the near future. And starting in early December, we will be undergoing core upgrades for the Astro system update. And they are currently working on upgrading consoles at PSAPs, and that should wrap up by the end of next week. Other than that, I've got some new ISIX numbers. We're currently set at 31,386 radios, 2,846 talk groups. And last month, we had about 2.5 million push-to-talks. That's all I had.
Just a real quick, acting SWIC update. We held the Iowa Comics down in Creston, was the third week, I believe it was, in October, the 26th and 27th. We had a completely full schedule of trainees that filled all of the open slots, and we're currently processing the position task books and the paperwork that's a result of that process. So anyone that attended should expect to get their position task book back in the mail sometime in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Overall was seemed to be very successful, and we thank CISA and for their assistance with putting that on. Other than that, that's all I have from the SWIC side.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on. Can we get an update from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency? Chris Myers, are you on the line?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Good morning.
Super. Good morning. Good morning, 911 Council. Sorry I couldn't be there in person today. Had some last-minute scheduling items that popped up today that precluded my attendance in person. So for this month, I do want to start off with that it is Infrastructure Security Month. You may recall October was Cybersecurity Month. Infrastructure Security Month is the month of November. This follows 3 of the main divisions that CISA covers with respect to protective security, cybersecurity, and also emergency communications. So CISA wants to remind everybody that together we can drive down risk and build resilience to our critical infrastructure. This covers all facets of infrastructure, whether it's power, water, emergency communications, the physical equipment. We can make sure that that critical infrastructure is secure because it is foundational to our national security. And keep in mind, critical infrastructure spans everything from emergency communications all the way to our partners in healthcare, water, education, chemical facilities, transportation, and energy. Threats are expanding, as you've probably seen in the news recently. These include cyber threats, physical, technological shortcomings of existing equipment, or natural disasters. If you want to learn more about Infrastructure Security Month, CISA has stood up a web page. If you just type in CISA and Infrastructure Security Month in any search engine, you will find it as well. So that is Infrastructure Security Month. On the next slide, too, I want to pass on an update from something we talked about a couple of months ago as well. CISA is working on updating the way they distribute information. Blake, did you advance the slide, or is my screen just slow? There we go. I see it now. Something called the traffic light protocol is going to be updated officially now as of 1 November. And if you get any bulletins from us, you'll probably see some new things. Again, the purpose of traffic light protocol is to disseminate information that is not classified, but it's still potentially sensitive. So keep in mind, it's not legally binding as well. Now, what's happened within CISA and within several federal agencies is they are transitioning from TLP1 to TLP2. CISA transferred over officially on the 1st of November. In the new documents, you will see that TLP clear will replace TLP white. TLP clear is basically, it's information that's useful, but you can disseminate it as widely and as broadly as you feel you need to. A new addition to the TLP protocol is TLP Amber Plus Strict. This is a supplement to the existing TLP Amber that previously said that the information is kept relatively close hold and only shared with key partners. Essentially, the strict designation now says that if you receive it, it has to stop with you. You can read more information on the traffic light protocol at tlp1st.org, or you can go to CISA's website. We have a page set up for the traffic light protocol as well. I believe it's CISA.com or CISA.gov/TLP. On the next slide, too, we want to talk about some updates for the 2023 TA requests for Iowa. Iowa submitted a very robust package this year through the Interoperability Board and through a lot of work with Deputy Swick Walzer. The overall package has been approved. This includes a COML, COMT, Incident Tactical Dispatcher, the 911 Cyber Assessment that Blake mentioned earlier, along with a skip refresh and an audio gateway course. Of note, the Audio Gateway course was based on direct feedback from attendees at the Iowa ComEx. So participation in all of these various TAs does feed back into what is eventually asked for. We are working on arranging scoping calls as well, and given the number of TA requests this year, we may look to consolidate some of them. Probably we will be looking to consolidate the ComL, ComT, and INTD offerings. If you do have a potential venue for any one of those items, I would encourage you to reach out to the ISIX Training Board representative, Haley Nichols, to try to see if you could get your facility on the docket for a potential location. Next slide, I want to touch on something that we discussed last month as well, the SAFECOM nationwide survey. That is coming out, and just a quick update for everybody here, the messaging materials have been approved internally within CISA. What this means is that we are still on track for that Q1 2023 release of the SAFECOM National Survey. Once again, the SAFECOM Nationwide Survey is something that drives the national conversation when it comes to interoperability for the next 5 years. Specific work products and groups that are created by DHS and CISA, along with potential grant opportunities, are a direct result of feedback that is garnered from the survey. I would encourage everyone in the room to fill this survey out. Again, they've made it much more efficient and streamlined, and things that will not pertain to your agency, you can now skip. So keep an eye out for this. You should be seeing some social messaging on social media platforms coming out within the next 2 to 3 weeks. And I would, again, encourage everybody to take this survey, as it is super, super important. Finally, a couple of work products from CISA I want to update everybody on. There was a paper that was released regarding distributed denial of service attacks on October 28th. This was a joint distribution and message from CISA, the Multi-State Information Sharing and Group, and the FBI. It outlines protective steps to reduce the likelihood and impact of distributed denial of service attacks. And keep in mind, this is an overload of a website, making it unreachable or inaccessible to legitimate users. In the case of our public safety communities, we often post specific instructions for constituents to do tasks or who to reach out to. So you want to make sure that those lines of communications are open for your stakeholders. Couple of things coming up too. Wanted to pass on some information on WPS performance. Hurricane Ian made landfall in late September, and I'm always a big believer in that if we're going to promote a program within CISA, that we better have the numbers to back it up. And what I've got here is some Hurricane Ian wireless priority service call success rates for the state of Florida. This is leading up to landfall and immediately after landfall. And in instances where WPS was invoked, the success rate, even after infrastructure was severely compromised, was still in excess of 90%. This is outstanding given the extent of damage that Florida saw with that hurricane. And again, I think it really states the importance of WPS and the GETS as well in an emergency situation when commercial infrastructure is compromised. Again, if you want to get WPS enabled on your mobile device, just let me know and I'll get you set up with our PTS representative. And also you can use GETS and WPS on the app to streamline the interface and the usage of that service. Finally, some regional news of note. There is a tabletop exercise today regarding the Big Creek Dam area up around Polk City. There's also some interesting things happening in Kansas City with the NFL draft that'll take place in late April. I will certainly pass on any lessons learned from that to Iowa stakeholders. And then finally, in addition to the cyber assessments that Iowa is currently looking at doing or is currently doing, Nebraska is also utilizing CISA cybersecurity services for an assessment of their statewide radio system. So that is my report for the day, Mr. Chair. I can go ahead and take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Chris. All right, moving on. Do we have a report from the Chapter 34A Administrative Code Committee on this?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The only update that I really have is obviously a couple months ago we sent out from Marshall County the cease and desist letter. We have gotten a response from that. It's basically a non-response, further trying to explain the bills. So there really isn't a whole lot of movement. Now that we've got as far as we can there, we've gotten a definitive answer. I'm going to be reaching out to not the team first, and then further reaching out to see where we can go as a whole in that. That's all I have for that, Mr. Chair.
Okay, and then anything for baseline knowledge?
No report as of right now. However, with the new developments, just on the state level as far as like 40-hour basic, I'm going to also formulate an email to the people that have volunteered for that and see if we can't get any movement of maybe some collaboration in that area. That's all I had in that.
All right, thank you. Elaborate on that somewhat.
I'm sorry, sir.
Could you elaborate a little bit more on that? I don't understand what you're talking about.
So I think that it's been brought up several different times about like the 40-hour basic class. So I attended the last telecommunicator board meeting, and they were talking about.
The advisory board, right?
I'm sorry, say that again, sir?
The advisory board?
Yes, sir. Yes. So I attended that, and one of the questions they had asked is, okay, so, you know, as a whole, as a state, maybe what are the things that we're looking to make sure that are in that 40-hour basic class, because there hasn't been some consistency along the way. So maybe some ideas of, you know, a group as a whole as to things that they would like to see for the state of Iowa.
And that's
what I was talking about.
And that thing would be to get away with the 40-hour basic course and create a different one, right? Different type of training to get certified?
No, this would be to offer the information back to the telecommunicator board advisory for what they're working on, because it's my understanding that they're working on not only something that the state could offer, but is there other 40-hour basics that could be allowed in that? That was my understanding from the meeting.
Yes, I'm a bit familiar with that, that thing there. And I would just like to express that I do not think that it's a good idea to get away from the ILEA basic required certified course.
That's not the intention of this. This is what could go into it. So what would we like to see taught? That's the intention of what I'm talking about.
Okay. As long as we're augmenting and making the 40-hour ILEA course better, that would be something that I think would be a good thing.
I think there's a lot of people think that. I think there's also equally a lot of people that would like to see a different type of 40-hour, as long as it's all taught and there's like some certification that goes along with it. I think there's equal parties. I think that right now we're just looking at simply what would like to be, to make sure that there's consistency. Yeah.
Just a note in the chat, the ILEA Telecommunicator Advisory Board is putting together a survey that should go out in the beginning of 2023 to get feedback from PMS.
Yes.
Now, I understand ILEA attorney was present at your last advisory committee.
I believe so. I'm not on the board. I was there, but there was an attorney there. I don't recall her name.
And what was they reviewed the questions, I believe, correct?
Yeah, so and Chris or Angie are both on the board as well. Feel free to jump in, but we kind of have some next steps. The survey is one of them. Another is a couple of years ago, the Denise Amber Lee Foundation convened a number of stakeholders to include NENA, APCO, NASNA, a bunch of partners to put together guidelines for minimum training standards. So the training board is also going to review those standards and see if they align. And then down the road, after those two things are completed, look at what is in code, what is in rule, and make recommendations for those things to be changed. So I think it's kind of a long-term strategic thought process to get things up to date is kind of the next steps.
And this is Chris Jasper, and I guess I'll just echo what Blake said. We're in a very early stage of basically fact-finding right now. We know that different centers are doing different things across the state. Training hasn't been real consistent, and so our very first step was to create this survey to kind of find out what people's thoughts are. What do they think should be included in 40-hour? What have their experiences been in the past? And then look at the whole big picture of training in Iowa and what we want it to look like.
Okay.
And I think maybe one more thing. So maybe you can jump in on this too, Mr. Chair. With this agenda item, it's been, the baseline knowledge has kind of been a ad hoc committee for a while now to look at this very topic as well. So it's kind of been an off and on again committee that now Rhonda chairs to kind of be that, I don't know, would you say conduit between us and ILEA, the 911 Council and ILEA?
And they did submit a report about that too. And just to get back to what I was talking about, this is just to, basically take that information and provide it back to them. This is not for us to do anything because we're not that committee.
Right.
But it's just another way of being able to provide that.
Okay.
So going back to the very beginning, the intent of the committee was simply as this advisory council, being an advisory council, this was an extension of that advisory, and there was never, ever any intent to replace the 40-hour or to replace ILEA as the folks providing that 40-hour, but rather just feedback from what we feel as the customer, the PSAPs, when they have people coming back from 40-hour, did they feel like they got what they went there for? Were there parts missing? What could have been better? And again, only advisory, never trying to take over anything, but just to give feedback back to the 40-hour course and those that provide it, just to make sure that everyone's comfortable with what's going on through that course.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on that?
No, sir, that was just the preliminary thought that, I'm open to any other questions that you might have.
Okay. All right. Hearing none, we'll move on to legislative issues. Anybody have a legislative issue you need to talk about? Okay, and then any information sharing by council members? Okay, I don't have any unfinished business or new business or travel requests. Do we have any business from the floor in this room? Do we have any business from the floor of our virtual participants? Okay, hearing none, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move Bearden.
Do I have a second?
Murphy seconds.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.